Sheena Symington is the director of the Electrosensitive Society. Her background is in biological and environmental sciences. She advocates on behalf of people who develop electro-hypersensitivity in Canada and elsewhere.
Hello, my name is Sheena Symington. I'm the director of the Electrosensitive Society. We provide support to those who experience electromagnetic hypersensitivity, which I'll refer to as EHS throughout my presentation. How many people in the general population are EHS? It is predicted that 3% of the population have severe symptoms, which interfere with their ability to function in the presence of electromagnetic fields and frequencies. 35% of the population are estimated to have moderate symptoms, and there may be many more who are EHS, but they are asymptomatic. For example, their blood or heart may react, but the person is unaware. To give you an idea of how many people in Canada may be affected, with a population of 38 million, that is 1 million who have severe symptoms. In the United States, it predicted that almost 10 million have severe symptoms, and in the EU, this translates into just over 15 million people with severe symptoms. What causes EHS? We have found that there are 5 common precursors. Number 1, physical trauma to the central nervous system, such as a concussion. Chemical trauma, for example, amalgam fillings. Electrical exposure, both chronic or acute. Biological trauma, such as mold, Lyme disease, or a high parasite load. And the 5th precursor is an impaired immune system. The key issues facing those with EHS are support of family and friends, a safe, low EMF housing option, access to medical diagnosis and treatment, recovery from EHS, R² ID. I'm often asked if EHS is physiological or psychological. I'll provide evidence on how electromagnetic fields lead to physiological responses in organisms. And finally, I will talk about how to accommodate and advocate for those who are EHS. Support for those who have EHS is critical. Understanding from friends and family is essential. No one chooses to be sensitive to electromagnetic fields and frequencies. Imagine being sensitive to something that is so pervasive in our society. This sensitivity can limit a person's ability to socialize and engage with others because of their need to eliminate electromagnetic exposure. Validation is important. Often those with EHS feel heard, they can start to heal. We need to provide support and advocate for those who have EHS. Sometimes an obstacle to support and accommodation is the belief that EHS is psychological. Do electromagnetic fields cause biological responses? I'll present information on live blood analysis, heart rate variability monitoring, and plant growth and Wi-Fi. When looking at the live blood, we prick a finger, place a drop of blood on a slide, and look at it under a microscope. This is a picture of Dr. Magda Havis's blood before Wi-Fi exposure. You can see the red blood cells are mostly independent of each other. After 10 minutes of Magda exposing herself to Wi-Fi, this is what her blood looks like. All of the red blood cells are stuck together. This is referred to as rouleau. Dr. Stephen Sinatra, one of America's leading integrative cardiologists, says our blood should be the consistency of red wine. When our blood is in rouleau formation, it is the consistency of ketchup. This can lead to symptoms such as headaches, fatigue, dizziness, blood pressure problems, and even heart attack and stroke. We wanted to see how plants responded when exposed to Wi-Fi. When peas were exposed for 30 days, their shoot growth was impaired. You can see how exposure affected the root growth as well. In the Wi-Fi exposed plants on the left, the root system is absent entirely. As you can see in the photo, the Wi-Fi exposed plants reacted differently than the reference. The control plants grew straight up towards the light, while the plants exposed to Wi-Fi grew away from the location of the Wi-Fi source, indicated by the red arrow. This study has been published in the journal Current Chemical Biology. Another key issue facing those with EHS is safe housing. A low EMF, MCS-friendly, and mold-free space is necessary. We need to encourage the telecommunication industry to create cell tower-free areas. To maintain these tower-free areas, technology could be accomplished through fiber optic networks with no wireless components. This would provide choice to those of us wishing to live in a low exposure region. Currently, sensitive individuals are utilizing mobile housing as a low EMF living space. The benefit of this is that if a cell tower antenna comes into the neighborhood, they can easily move to a safer location. Upon initial EHS diagnosis, many individuals must give up their homes in order to reduce their electromagnetic exposure. Thus, we need to establish low EMF emergency shelters within each community to provide a safe place for these individuals to go until more permanent housing can be obtained. Living options have been further compromised due to COVID closures. As mentioned, many suffering from EHS end up homeless in an attempt to avoid electromagnetic exposure, so they depend on campgrounds. During COVID, camping facilities have been closed, eliminating the option of showers or washrooms. Another key challenge is finding access to a doctor who's both knowledgeable and sympathetic to the individual with EHS. We need more doctors able to diagnose, treat, and accommodate those with EHS in their facilities and hospitals. As of 2015, the International Classification of Diseases formally recognized EHS injury, thus providing legitimacy to patients' symptoms. Medical alert bracelets or road ID bracelets should be provided to alert the medical community of the need of EHS accommodation. And EHS has been recognized as a functional impairment in Sweden since 2000 and in the USA since 2002 under the American Disability Act. R²ID is an acronym we created to describe the steps individuals can take to recover from EHS. The first R stands for reducing your electromagnetic exposure, and the second R stands for resetting of your limbic system. I'll describe in detail what I mean by these two R's in the following slides. I stands for boosting the immune system, and D stands for detox. Both the immune system functioning and detox involve help from a good healthcare provider. In order to reduce your electromagnetic exposure, you must first measure it. Using the following meters can help you determine what devices you should eliminate within your home. Assistance can be provided by a trained professional, such as one from the Building Biology Institute. I recommend that you measure radio frequency radiation, dirty electricity, electric and magnetic fields, and light noise or light flicker. I also recommend that you use blue blockers to block the blue light. Radio frequency radiation is invisible. We can't hear it, we can't see it, and only some of us can feel it. If we could hear radio frequency radiation, this is what the various emitting devices would sound like. This is the Bluetooth, baby monitor, Wi-Fi router, cordless phone, cell phone, and the mother's baby monitor. Some homes sound like this. Reducing your exposure is critical. To reduce wireless exposure from mobile devices, you can connect your iPhone, iPad, or iPod to Ethernet using special adapters and avoid the radiation from Wi-Fi. Details on how to do this are provided here, and for more tips on how to reduce your electromagnetic exposure, visit the Electrosensitive Society website at the bottom of this slide. If you are unable to wire the mobile devices, ensure you keep them away from your body as much as possible. Distance is your friend. Some people with EMS seem to be in a constant state of flight and fight, and these individuals need to reset their limbic system and improve its function in order to recover. The limbic reset seems to be as important as in the recovery process as reducing your electromagnetic exposure. There are a number of ways you can reset your limbic system. Two methods include dynamic neural retraining system developed by Annie Hopper. Many with EHS have recovered using this system, particularly if anxiety is a reaction. Heal from Your Past is also an effective process developed by Renew Aurora. The method I am most familiar with is auricular chromotherapy, which means colored light on the ear. Dr. Daniel Assis and his colleagues have developed a method eliminating trauma by using this technique. This research has been published in the journal Medical Acupuncture. The lobe of the ear represents the central nervous system and limbic zone. I would like to draw your attention to point 1 on the ear, which is the location associated with the amygdala, and 2, which is the hypothalamus. Certain points on the earlobe are very sensitive when palpated while remembering a significant trauma, phobia, or emotionally charged event. This technique is non-invasive and does not require the client to share any details of the event during the session. Then a small LED light is used to treat the most sensitive point on the ear. By doing this, the trauma victims are able to eliminate their traumas. The success of this method is nothing short of miraculous. For more information, and Dr. Assis's website, The Centered Movement. This shows us the effect of different colors of visible light. Blue light is antibacterial. Yellow light has an anti-inflammatory effect. Orange light is for local microcirculation and to stimulate growth factors and immunomodulation. The depth of the skin penetration is a function of wavelength. Red light penetrates the deepest and blue light penetrates the least, while yellow light penetrates 2 millimeters into the skin. To learn how to treat trauma through this method of auricular chromotherapy with Dr. Daniel Assis, please visit the virtual booth 140 of the Electrosensitive Society, available online during this conference. Once any traumas have been treated and eliminated, toxic thinking also has to be addressed. One needs to shift from a limiting mindset to a more healthy and accurate one. To address this change in thinking, I suggest a combination of the following 3 authors. Much of our thinking and self-talk comes from our childhood experiences. Dr. Brené Brown is a PhD researcher who argues that being vulnerable was actually an act of courage and the true path to connection with others. Her book, The Gifts of Imperfections, talks about embracing our imperfections rather than hiding them. Her entertaining books, podcasts, TED Talks, and movie on Netflix uses humor, and her approach is refreshing and thought-provoking. Dr. Shefali Tasbury and her parenting book, The Awakened Family, provides insights into how we were parented. Those constant helpful suggestions and corrections we received from our parents and teachers and other well-meaning adults on a daily basis were messages that what we were doing was never right, never enough. Dr. Tasbury helps determine how our negative self-talk originated. And finally, Nicola Bird provides an unusual but incredibly effective approach to eliminating anxiety. The analogy she uses is one of a snow globe. When we shake the snow globe, all of the white flakes float around within the snow globe. Those snowflakes represent our anxious thoughts. In order to have the anxious thoughts stop, we must stop shaking the snow globe. We learn to not take our thinking so seriously and literally do nothing about our anxious thinking. Less is more. Another example that she uses is, imagine your anxious thoughts are the equivalent to a New York City taxi cab. They just show up when you haven't ordered them, when you don't want them to. The taxi, or your anxious thought, wants you to get in. Instead, you ignore the cab or the anxious thought and just let it go. Understanding the nature of thought allows us to ignore our anxious thinking and realize that we are not our thinking. Another key issue facing those with EHS is how do we accommodate them within hospitals, schools, and public spaces. We have had great success in having patients accommodated within Ontario hospitals. Here is a case study of a 67-year-old female with severe EHS and MCS who needed radiation and chemotherapy for cancer. She needed to stay in the hospital for 5 weeks of treatment. We created a low EMF environment for her. The first thing we did was contact the patient experience office and provide them with information on how to accommodate someone with EHS and MCS. Then we measured and reduced the electromagnetic exposure. Attention was given to key areas within the hospital, including the entrance, admitting, elevators, cancer clinic, and inpatient hospital room. The local building biologist was on call and measured numerous times to ensure low exposure. We worked with the hospital IT department and security to turn off Wi-Fi access points. Personal wireless devices of doctors and nurses were turned off or left at the nurse's station away from the EHS patient. Due to the inability to completely eliminate the radio frequency radiation, we needed to install an RF blocking canopy within the patient's room. This canopy was installed by the maintenance department of the hospital. Dirty electricity was also filtered within her room. Communication with the patient was key, both prior to her arrival and when she was at the hospital, as she had limited phone and no access to internet. Working with the director of the cancer clinic, doctors, nurses, technicians, security, and maintenance staff, we were able to achieve very low electromagnetic levels within the hospital. And now we have this RF blocking canopy as part of a kit available for others. Hospital administrators are keen to share this learning experience with other hospitals in Ontario, and they are recommending that their health and safety department purchase handheld electrosmog meters in order to monitor the hospital environment. Details on how to accommodate someone within a hospital setting are available at the Electrosensitive Society website. To accommodate within a school environment, you want to hardwire for internet access by using fiber optics and/or shielded Ethernet cable. We have found that the most effective method to eliminating personal wireless devices within a school was to provide the teacher with the handheld RF meter. This meter translates the radio frequency radiation into sound, such as I demonstrated in an earlier slide. And this sound reminds the individual that their device is on, rather than the student being the reminder for the person to turn off their device. Electromagnetic exposure has to be minimized in entrances and hallways, as well as within the classroom. And Wi-Fi routers can actually be placed on a switch, only to be engaged when needed. It has also been demonstrated that Wi-Fi routers can be powered down to only 16% in a school and still provide adequate Wi-Fi access to students. To increase EHS access in public spaces, you want to hardwire internet where possible and turn Wi-Fi and cell phones off. Libraries and health food stores here in Ontario offer Wi-Fi free access and shopping opportunities. Sobeys grocery store offers Wi-Fi free Wednesdays by disconnecting their Wi-Fi. And restaurants and hotels are starting to offer digital detox opportunities. I'm in discussion with 2 separate resorts in Ontario to offer week-long low EMF retreats. Restaurants in New York City were the first to offer no smoking environments, and they're also leading the way in cell phone-free restaurants. Finally, it's also important for dentist offices and other healthcare providers to provide a low EMF environment for their EHS patients. Many offices that have done this have noticed such a difference with their staff that they remain low EMF at all times. It is the responsibility of each community to develop an infrastructure that is accessible to those who have EHS. Under the Accessibilities Act for Ontario, facilities are required to be fully accessible by 2025. This includes environmentally induced disabilities such as EHS and MCS. In order to accommodate this EHS, This would require developing cell tower-free areas. Peterborough, Ontario, the city where I live, the city has developed an EHS tip sheet, which documents how to facilitate meetings which are accessible to those who have EHS. Again, this accommodation is achieved by wiring internet connections and turning off Wi-Fi and cell phones. The following documents provide guidelines on how to create connected communities using wired fiber for sustainable last-mile solutions, and to develop cell tower siting protocols that reflect and protect local interests, which would include creating low EMF regions. And finally, the book Reinventing Wires, The Future of Landlines and Networks by Dr. Timothy Shackley. This book provides solutions for fiber optic installation. And for more information, visit his website, gettingsmarteraboutthesmartgrid.org. Frank Clegg, former president of Microsoft Canada, started an organization called Canadians for Safe Technology. He's been very active for more than 8 years educating Canadians about the health risks associated with wireless technology, and most recently his organization, c4st.org, has launched a 5G appeal, which is an urgent appeal to the Canadian government to suspend the rollout of 5G and to choose safe and reliable fiber connections. Rick Nichols is a member of provincial parliament in Ontario, and he has recently introduced a private member's bill to deal with ground current, Wi-Fi in schools, smart meters, and cell towers, including reviewing the limits set by Safety Code 6 federally for radio frequency radiation levels. Here's a list of advocacy groups who are currently active in Canada. These groups were all supporters of the 5G appeal launched by Canadians for Safe Technology in May 2020. There are a number of Canada-wide groups in addition to many provincial groups. Please visit my website, electrosensitivesociety.com. I provide one-on-one consultation. I work with anyone who has EHS and needs help obtaining medical assistance or reducing your electromagnetic exposure. I also provide any type of advocacy that is necessary within their living or working environments. Please contact me if you have any questions.